Hi, I'm Brent Johnson.
And I'm Andrew Schaeffer, and today we are coming to you from the Evangelical Lutheran Church of St. Luke.
In Chicago.
In Chicago.
Yeah.
If you are from Chicago, there are a few St. Luke's, and so this one is known as St. Luke's on Belmont.
And you know this place very well, correct?
I do. So I grew up here in Chicago and attended church here as a young lad. I got to hear Paul Mons play this organ before his retirement, and coupled with the beautiful building and the incredible liturgy that I found here, I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I decided I was going to be a church musician.
Well, that's right. And a lot of you probably already know this is where Paul Mons was the cantor for many years after he left Mount Olive Lutheran in Minneapolis. And if you didn't see our video about that Schlicker organ, it's up here in the corner or down in the description. And here we have an even bigger Schlicker organ. Yep. That Paul Mons dedicated in 1963,
I believe.
So that was actually a little earlier than Mount Olive Schlicker. So he'd seen and heard, he knew these organs, and he knew he wanted one at Mount Olive. And this one has some similarities.
It does, but the room is quite a bit bigger than Mount Olive, and this is, in my opinion, a mid-century masterpiece. Yeah. The pastor who was here at the time, a longtime pastor, A.R. Kretzmann, was a noted liturgical scholar and consulted with lots of churches over his lifetime. And so the architect of the building here was actually a member of the church, and he and Pastor Kretzmann schemed quite a bit and traveled all over to get ideas for this space. So it's a very unique room. It was designed with the organ in mind, so it has really great acoustics.
Indeed. And it's an interesting design with sort of the floating balcony and then the organ on the back wall and all of this space and all this great acoustics.
The entrance of the church is an idea Kretzmann borrowed from some churches in Europe, and they call it the Paradisum. So it was supposed to be this almost heavenly area with live plants, and we have a large Christ figure and scenes from the Bible, and wanted the whole length of the ceiling to be visible in that area.
Well, it works. There's also a baptistry back there, adding to the nature
ambiance,
segment. So you may be hearing that throughout the recording, but just welcome to St. Luke's. Donald Mead is the organist here, the cantor now, and he is going to tell us a little bit about the history of the church and the organ.
I'm Don Mead. I'm the organist at St. Luke Church. I started playing here on Christmas Eve of 2012. I have the title of cantor. I've been organist, and I teach in the school that we have, much like many Catholic parishes where you have a school and a church. I do work in the school and the church. But we're interested in the organ today. So this church, this parish, has been in existence for close to 140 years. It had a strong streak of German immigrant population, which influenced some things musically, culturally, the fact that we're Lutherans, etc. In 1960, this space was erected. In 1963, Schlicker installed this organ here. This organ has some sort of, you might say, siblings. It's brought to my attention, I've seen it on paper, that the organ Paul Mons played in Minnesota was a very close stop list to this. And then near here in Chicago, not more than about 2 miles of that, is Church of the Ascension, an Episcopal church where renowned David Schrader was the organist for almost 30 years, has another Schlicker of about this same age, same size, almost again the same stop list. Ben Hadley was the name of the man who was the Schlicker representative in Chicago in the Midwest. Ben was the organist and choir master at Ascension, and he did all the sales and all that kind of work here in the 60s when these organs were being installed. The organ has not had a lot of change, but a couple things do still come to mind. Paul Mons came here in 1980, I believe, right exactly that year, from Minnesota. And a brilliant move he made was to move the positive division, which currently sits on the front edge of our balcony, was previously on the wall of the side wall of the balcony. It was a brilliant move because while this is a very good room acoustically, the brick, I suspect, can absorb some sound because it's rough, etc. And the positive being now out in the room, it speaks so incredibly easily, and it just rings like crazy. The positive sounds just splendid out there. One legendary story, I don't know if it's true, but another organist who played here at St. Luke was a man named Jim Gladstone. He actually preceded Paul Mons some years. Jim told me one day after I'd come here that the trumpet à chamade was actually switched with the same stop in Valparaiso. Some gentlemen working with the Schlicker company must have thought in the huge space they have at Valparaiso that they needed apparently maybe a bigger scaled trumpet that was here, and maybe they got switched. We don't know that for sure, but that's a story. One division of the organ we have here is the antiphonal organ, which is in the front left if you're looking towards the altar. The antiphonal organ was actually put together by Schlicker as sort of a very self-contained unit. It has a little teeny pedal division, and it was here for the church to use, ready to go before the whole organ was. They put it actually in our basement fellowship room where they could have services while they started to put the organ in place and do things in the room that would have been disruptive. And then, of course, later it was installed to the organ, where it is now, unlike the positive, which has had the two different places.
So we're here at the console of the Schlicker. It looks like a very standard Schlicker console.
Sure does.
Just like all the others we've seen. And the organ, of course, is against the back wall with the positive in front of us, and then actually antiphonal way down there. So we have organ on surround sound.
Schlicker.
Surround Schlicker.
Surround sound mixtures, yeah.
Yeah, so let's just start. Where do you think? The Great Division? We can
Actually, I was going to start, we'll work our way around the room.
Okay,
How about that?
that'll work.
Work our way forward. So the antiphonal is 2 manuals and pedal, and it's one of the Schlicker standard models. It's
Okay.
a stock model, and actually they had one just like it at St. Olaf College, and so many of us have been through the ringer on one of these things. It's a unit organ, and so first stop we'll play is the 8-foot roar flute. Then there is a 4-foot block flute that actually is a 2-foot. And so it borrows the bottom octave from the roar flute. So let's listen. Not a very convincing,
Right.
but it works. But then you get an 8 and a 4, and you know,
When you combine it down there, you'd never notice.
you're not going to hear it. Two-foot principle, and that is, I believe that goes all the way down to 4 in the great. Unfortunately, the great stops. We're having a solid state issue today, and so I'm having to do this all off of the positive manual, and then an Azat. Let's put it together. Really helps tie the room together.
Yeah, sure.
It is a very long church, as you can see, and so especially people in the chancel. There is actually also, call it the children's balcony, where the children's choir would sit
All right.
For special services. And there's a separate console in the children's balcony that you can control just the organ from. And so if you have a choir in the smaller balcony, this comes in real handy.
Oh, very nice.
The gedect is taken down to 16 there. And then there is also a mixture. I think I could play it in the pedal.
Okay.
So that's that.
That's the antiphonal in the front.
So we're going to come back, work our way back, like I said, and start in the positive division. Don has mentioned it used to be on a shelf in the wall.
Yeah.
And 2 I-beams there, and then Paul Mons had it moved to the positive position. Everyone and their mother has an opinion about it. I think the positive division on the rail makes it a little bit hard to keep everything together, but nevertheless, it really works well downstairs.
Okay.
So we have a standard 8-foot Schlicker gedeckt made out of wood. This sound always takes me back because it sounds like every other Schlicker gedeckt I've ever heard in my life. But it's a real gem. Nice and present.
Very chiffy.
Yep. And then a roar flute, again, your standard Schlicker 4-foot roar flute. They made gazillions of these because they really sound pretty, especially down here. And then putting them together.
Yeah, very bright.
And a block flute. And creates one of my favorite combinations of 8, 4, and 2-foot flutes. And if that wasn't enough brilliance,
a little more.
We have a 1-foot sift flute to add to it.
Lovely.
So there is a decomposed cornet on the positive division. There's a 2 2/3. Sort of, you hear those first few notes, sounds principal-like.
Yeah, that's what.
I think it doesn't quite know what it wants to be. And then a tierce. But it makes it for a most beautiful cornet. I'll put the trem on, something in the swell here.
That's a lovely cornet.
It is.
That's amazing.
Just have to play it again.
Very nice.
So there is a 2-foot principal in addition to the block flute too. Again, standard Schlicker principal, sound like all the others. Particularly barks down here. Needs a little bit of regulation, but here it is with the 8 and 4.
Yeah, very nice.
With the Scharf. You might be wondering about that Scharf. So I'm going to skip ahead, and here's kind of the full organ. Here's just a big chord. Now here's with the Scharf. You see, that Scharf really sails.
Sits on top of everything. Yeah. Okay.
And then 16-foot Regal, which is kind of a fun stop. Now, I have to say, this church is unair conditioned.
Yeah.
It was probably 120 degrees in here last week.
It's August.
Not exaggerating. It was probably very hot, approaching that. And so it's it's settling down, and those little short length resonator reeds tend not to like to stay.
Well, we're
in
lucky
tune.
the temperature's evened out today that everything else in the organ is really
Yeah, it is.
sitting right where it should. So we'll forgive those few reeds.
Yeah, and then 8-foot crumb horn, which by itself is pretty thinly scaled. But it pairs really well with the 8-foot gedeckt. Close your eyes, do a lot of imagination. You can maybe hear a clarinet in there.
Maybe.
Well, it's not trying to be a clarinet.
No, not at all.
Paul Mons used to love to play around with these sounds a lot. Sometimes crumb horn and a 4-foot roar flute. Sometimes with a 2.
I remember David Sherwin at Mount Olive telling us about how Paul loved to do some of those unorthodox sort of skips in registration. And
8 and 1.
yeah.
And then he would like to put these reeds and the pedals. Against strings, Things he could get away
Creative things, yes.
with. Everyone thinks of Schlicker organs, and I'm biased because I grew up with this organ, come to church here as a kid, and also another church I grew up at had a Schlicker. And so this was my first exposure to the organ. I was on organs like this, and this one in particular too. But we think of them as, they tried to copy Schnickers and they failed. They're so stupid. How could they not get this right? It's like, what? They were trying to capture the spirit of them. But it's important to note that Hermann Schlicker was trying to do a new thing tonally.
Yeah.
And he was building for Lutherans who were rediscovering chorale singing and the great works of Schütz and Hammerschmidt and all this great choral music. And so they were really trying to tailor organs for the 20th century that could play that literature in an exciting way. Keep that in mind as we continue to go throughout this organ. So we're going to move to the main case now. Okay. And I'll start with the swell, actually, which is at the highest level. You can see the shades if you look at the organs. Need to open them. So we have an 8-foot roar flute. Here it is against the positive.
A little darker, more subdued sound. Okay.
A solutional that actually doesn't have a whole lot of chiff. And I should mention that this solutional, and I think the Celeste, and I think this Holz flute or the queer flute came from the church's Kilgan organ.
Oh, okay.
In the old building.
Wow.
The Lutherans are thrifty.
Okay.
So the strings, Schlicker, of course, took the pipework and...
Yeah, they're not quite Kilgan strings anymore.
Yeah, but here we go. Here are the strings. The Swell 4.
they're definitely not Kilgan strings anymore, but they're still very lovely and they work well with the other
pipes.
pipework.
Geigen principle. With the 2 8s. To that, you can add a 2-foot hole flute. 5-rank mixture.
It's quite a mixture.
This. Wait till we get to the great.
Okay.
Is it a 4-foot Spitz flute? Here it is with the 8. Against the positive. And the 2. And then we have a Klein Nazat, 1 1/3. And then the reeds, which I think really kind of give this organ its characteristic fun, exciting growl. This is the fagot. Shalmai. The Shalmai here is kind of doing double duty as a oboe sort of trumpet, swell trumpet-ish. Here it is with like the 8 and 4 and 2. So you can kind of color it.
Yeah.
Here we'll add it to the great.
Add a lot of brightness and growl, but the flues themselves are bright and edgy enough that they're
Right.
just kind of sitting in with each other there. You don't really get that crowning effect.
Yeah. We have a clarion 4 too.
Okay.
Put them all together.
Maybe that adds the brightness and the over the flues.
And then if you want your characteristic full swell, which this organ really isn't built to do, but we'll try it anyway.
Shades are effective enough to hold it back and really give you that
little bit of
contrast
growl.
of growl. Yeah, okay. That's our swell division.
Going to the great, we have a gedeckt Homer at 16. And this one is definitely Homer-esque. It's very quinty. It's essentially a fancy quintadina. If you want to claim you don't have a quintadina, this is a way to sneak
It's a
one
Palmer.
in.
Okay. I don't know why anyone would want to hide the fact they have a 16-foot quintadina, so every organ needs one.
I agree. But here's the 8-foot principal. Could use a little bit of regulation.
Now, is that some of the pipes in the facade?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, are those pedal pipes, all of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's all behind. And then the Gemshorn at 8, which is thought of as a secondary principle.
Okay.
Pretty bold for a Gemshorn.
Yeah.
And then a Holz flute, which I think I mentioned before, comes from the Kilgan. Beautiful flute.
It's lovely. I'm guessing Kilgan didn't call that a Holz flute.
That's a question for Chris Sower.
Okay.
That's beyond my pay grade. I'm not a Kilgan expert. I'm a Schlicker guy, but
I just don't think I've ever seen a Holz flute on a Kilgan, but I could be wrong.
it's probably an old melodia that they went to town with. And a queer flute at 4. And we'll have to go in and see it. Holtz, of course, tells you right away it's a wood flute, but the queer flute, I'm not quite sure. I believe it's metal.
Okay. Very nice.
I skipped over the 4-foot octave. With the 8. Here is the quint to go with it.
It's a strong quint.
It is a strong quint, yep. And then a 2-foot octave.
Lovely clear sound.
Yeah. And then I promised the granddaddy of them all, the 6-rank mixture. With the 8-4, we'll throw in the quint.
Okay.
Some more pedal stuff. Oh, and we only live once, we'll add on the quintadina.
That's a big mixture, but I don't find it overwhelming for the
No,
ensemble.
actually, I think that guy.
That was so
is
much bigger
Mark,
than the rest.
Let's listen. This is definitely higher pitch.
And that would be typical that your swell mixture is probably higher than your great, and you can use that to continue crowning up from wherever you start.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
What's one stop that almost every organ has that this one really doesn't have?
I don't know. What are we missing? Maybe I'm not looking
A
for
trumpet.
Oh, an actual trumpet. Yeah.
An actual trumpet.
Because we have
a trompetta real, and I'm going to embarrass myself and use my very poor Paul Mons voice. Trompetta real. And he'd like to say about this one, it's seared the path down the center of the nave. And it sure does. And you have that, if that's not enough, you have it at 16 and 4.
yeah, that's very searing.
Let's see if it plays well with others.
It's a little overwhelming.
I don't think so.
Now, this is different from, say, Mount Olive Lutheran, where their Schlicker does have it on Shemad, but it's really meant to be a chorus reed.
That was, I think, the idea.
But here, it's so much louder than the organ. So
I mean,
sure it's
it really is a solo reed.
yeah, okay.
That's how we use it. That did not stop Paul from using it as a chorus reed.
Well,
Yeah. So a chorus trumpet. It is not. That never stopped Paul from trying to use it as a chorus trumpet.
you know, if that's what you've got, you run with it.
Yeah. And so, so this organ really lacks that. At the Mount Olive organ, it too lacked a chorus trumpet, and the organ, I do think, needed one.
Yeah.
And so Dobson, if you recall in that video, extended the posaune in the pedal up and
right.
added a few
That's correct, yes.
some pipes on a new chest, and I think it is a wonderful compromise. Again, you don't have to use it if you want to use the organ as exactly as Paul knew it. And this organ, I should say, it's had a lot of work done to it to keep it going, and regular maintenance, which is all wonderful. But totally, it's about what it was like when Paul dedicated it in 1963.
So the pedals.
Yeah, before we forget, we have a pretty large scale 16-foot principal, and it's in the facade. And if you're wondering, wow, those are the biggest 16-foot pipes I've ever seen, they are overlength by a lot. I think the organ case rises 30 feet into the air. I think we can check the measurements, but it's I know the ceiling is 65 feet.
Wow.
So yeah, it's about halfway, and it starts about halfway up. So
okay,
all right, here's the principal. Big scale.
Big sound, yeah.
And then the 16-foot subbass is also pretty big. And then the Palmer comes down from the grate. And kind of, well, it's trying down there. 8-foot octave. And now we're getting into facade pipe work.
Okay.
Gem's horn comes from the grate. Chorale bass. Gem's horn comes from the grate. 2 pedal mixtures.
Two-rank Roush quint.
And then a real 4-rank mixture. Put it all together. Paul Bunges helped design this organ back in the 1960s. I don't think he had a real heavy hand in the design of this organ, but he did suggest things and was the consultant. And he was a big proponent of 2 pedal mixtures.
Really?
His motto was, you only live once, so you need 2 pedal mixtures. But no, he frequently liked to do this. He would put a 2-rank Roush quint and then a 2-rank, so a low pitch mixture and then a high pitch mixture, and then you could use them both. In this instance, the organ's big enough where there's a low pitch mixture and then a 4-rank high pitch mixture. So
sounds like one big one. Yeah.
and it actually, I think, is appropriate. There's a 16-foot posaune that is quite a sound. So you can hear, here's the upper part of the posaune, and picture that extended up, and that's
That would give
the
you a
sound
good
that,
smooth read. Okay.
And then the fagot comes from the swell, and then there's a 4-foot clarion, and I think that's independent.
Okay. Doesn't sound like anything else.
And then my favorite stop in the whole organ is the 32-foot contra fagot.
Oh.
So let's listen. So you might be wondering, why is that your favorite stop? It really rattles down there in a most prompt, profound way. I mean, it's most 32-foots we think of as just, but this one I think really works because it just has this nice gravitas, just punch. Here it is without the posaune. Hear it purring down there?
You can just cuts right through.
And now if we were to use a big registration, here is without. And with the 16-foot or the 32-foot posaune.
loud, but it adds a little power down to the bass.
I just have to say, I have to embarrass. So I was someone, and I hope he's watching. Aaron Reichert, who is the vice president at Taylor & Booty and their tonal director. I was over to see their brand new organ in Donaldson, Indiana. Fabulous, fabulous organ. You should go there. And
Donors, let us know if you want to see it.
anyway, so went there again. Beautiful new Taylor & Booty organ. It has a Contra Fagot 32, and I put it on there and I played it. It's the one from St. Luke. and I told Aaron, I was like, you nailed that, like Schlicker 32 for Fagot. I think he was just, how do I put it?
Well, I mean,
he was, I'm not sure if he thought it was a compliment or not, but it was a compliment. I love that stuff.
It's the thing that, you know, a 60s Schlicker is not the fad anymore.
Right.
And it's not what people set out to design. And this one, despite, it's got all this brightness, it's got these big mixtures, it's got the chiffy pipes, it's the product of its era, but it still, they gave it plenty of foundation and plenty of bass, and it's got plenty of power down there, and it's not a weak instrument by any means. It's a full chorus, and I can see why it hasn't really been changed, whereas a lot of the instruments like this, somewhere 20, 30 years later, somebody came in with a nicking pin and smoothed everything out, but here it all works.
Well, and this church, of course, has a very proud history with Paul Mons' long tenure here, and so I think we want to preserve the sound that he made so much excellent music on, and sounds that inspired him to write such great music.
No,
so
definitely.
It's nice to have this time capsule here, and the room, I hope the mics are picking up, acoustically is a very good room.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And it was designed in such a way with the organ in mind. And so if you look at the front window, which is just a big giant sunrise from the book of Malachi, glorious window. But anyway, it goes inwards like this to provide a nice bounce too.
The sound back, yeah.
And the brick has been sealed, so it's not porous. Terrazzo floors, no pew cushions, and I think even the ceiling was sealed at some point.
Okay.
And so it's a really wonderful room. the art teacher at the school painted this of Paul, so it lives in perpetuity outside the balcony, so he's always looking. But reportedly, this was not Paul's favorite character of himself, but I'm glad it lives on. What I wouldn't kill to have this for my office, you know.
So, of course, normally I would be taking you up inside the organ at this point. However, for reasons I can't fully explain, we're not able to do that in this video. Perhaps we'll see inside this. For now, let's listen to Don play some more.
asking about why Schlickers are predominantly found in Lutheran churches. And G. Donald Harrison was asking himself the same question when he designed the landmark organ at St. John Lutheran Church in Forest Park.
Oh.
And so I think we should head on over there and explore that instrument and do some comparisons to this one.
See how another builder who from a different background thinks of a Lutheran
Right.
worship organ. All right, well, we'll recharge all our batteries and head over there. That'll be our next video out, so make sure you're subscribed to our channel and click the little bell to get notifications when this video comes out soon. I hope next week. Until then, remember you can always find streaming music on our 3 classical organ stations, organlive.com, Positively Baroque, and The Organ Experience. We're going to go cool off a little bit and charge batteries and go visit another Lutheran organ. Until then, I'm Brent Johnson.
I'm Andrew Schaeffer.
Thank you for watching.